Welcome back to the Rock Vault, where the amps are always hot and the vinyl never stops spinning. Today, we're traveling back to 1971, a year overflowing with unforgettable rock energy. Beyond the legends we all know, there were flashes of brilliance from artists who left just one mark on the charts. Let's dust off those grooves and rediscover 10 forgotten one-hit wonders worth remembering.
When I woke up this morning,
Few songs from 1971 hit the radio with such raw, gut-level emotion as Lee Michaels' "Do You Know What I Mean?" Stripped down to little more than Hammond organ, drums, and a raspy voice full of heartbreak. It cut through the overproduced sheen of the era like a confession shouted straight into the night. It was immediate, unfiltered, and unforgettable, a soul-bearing anthem disguised as rock. Michaels recorded it at A&M Studios in Hollywood, handling most of the instrumentation himself, with only drummer Barry "Frosty" Smith backing him up. What really set it apart was the absence of guitar, a bold move in 1971, when guitar riffs dominated the charts. Instead, that swirling organ groove carried the weight, making the track sound unlike anything else on the radio. It climbed all the way to number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100, but Michaels never replicated that success. For fans who lived it, this was the soundtrack to heartbreak and frustration. Picture yourself driving late at night, headlights stretching across an empty highway, belting out the chorus with the windows down because the pain felt too heavy to hold inside. That's what Michaels tapped into. The universal sting of love lost, packaged in a raw, garage-born rock confessional. Even today, "Do You Know What I Mean?" stands out as one of the most searing one-hit wonders of the early 70s. It wasn't polished, it wasn't pretty, but it was real, and that honesty is why listeners still remember the feeling, even if they forgot the name behind it. Lee Michaels may not have had another hit, but with this one, he gave us something timeless. Sometimes a song doesn't just play, it kicks down the door. Resurrection Shuffle was one of those records. From the very first blast of horns, it fused rock and rhythm and blues with a swagger that demanded attention. The gritty organ, the brassy punch, and that stomping rhythm section created a track that sounded like it was made for smoky clubs and sweaty dance floors. It was unapologetically raw and full of energy, the kind of tune that could get a crowd moving in seconds. Recorded at Trident Studios in London, the same hallowed ground where Elton John and David Bowie were cutting their early classics, the band captured lightning in a bottle. Tony Ashton's raspy vocals carried the grit of a barroom preacher, while Kim Gardner's bass and Roy Dyke's drumming locked into a groove that never let up. It became a surprise hit, climbing into the top 40 in the US, though the band themselves would never quite break into the mainstream again. For those who lived through 1971, this was a track that stuck in your bones. You could picture it pouring out of jukeboxes in neighborhood bars, couples two-stepping to the horn section's thunder, or college kids blasting it on weekend nights, trying out that shuffle in their living rooms. It wasn't polished arena rock. It was street-level, real and alive. Resurrection Shuffle may have been Ashton, Gardner, and Dyke's one shining moment, but it left an impression that has outlasted their short-lived fame. It was proof that sometimes one hit is enough to carve your name into rock history. The shuffle still brings back memories of crowded dance floors, brass-filled nights, and that unbeatable feeling when a song makes you forget everything but the beat. Dave Edmunds' "I Hear You Knocking" sounded like it had been pulled straight from the birth of rock and roll, even though it hit radios in 1971. With its crunchy guitars, echo-soaked vocals, and stripped-down urgency, it was a track that bridged the gap between early rock pioneers and the new decade's rising energy. Edmunds took an old Smiley Lewis blues tune from the 50s and gave it a hard-edged facelift, recording it almost entirely on his own at Rockfield Studios in Wales. He layered the track with slapback echo as a deliberate nod to Sun Records-era Elvis, while his jagged guitar licks gave it the grit of a garage band performance. The result was a song that felt both nostalgic and modern, a fresh revival of rock's roots wrapped in 1971 attitude. For fans who heard it at the time, this wasn't just another radio single. It was a shot of adrenaline that reminded listeners where rock came from, while proving it still had teeth. Picture yourself in 1971, tuning into AM radio late at night, when suddenly this blast from the past comes roaring through the static. For many, it was like rediscovering the raw thrill of hearing rock and roll for the very first time back in the 50s. I Hear You Knocking climbed the charts around the world, even reaching #1 in the UK. But for Edmunds, it became both a blessing and a curse. While he built a respected career in rock circles afterward, this song remained his defining moment in the mainstream. A single flash of brilliance that still echoes today, reminding us how one-hit wonders often burn the brightest in just a few unforgettable minutes.
When I woke up this morning,
Every now and then, a song sneaks onto the radio that makes you do a double take. The Buoys' Timothy sounded at first like just another breezy folk rock tune. Bright harmonies, a catchy melody, and an easygoing chorus. But a closer listen revealed something much darker. A tale of a mine collapse, with unsettling hints of cannibalism. It was a bold experiment in pushing boundaries, wrapped in a deceptively cheerful package. The song was penned by Rupert Holmes. Yes, the same songwriter who would later give us Escape, the Pina Colada song. Holmes set out to see if he could smuggle such a grim subject into mainstream pop rock, and to his surprise, it worked. Recorded at Scepter Studios in New York, the track's crisp production only heightened the contrast between its sunny sound and macabre storyline. Radio stations banned it in some markets, but controversy only fueled its rise, helping it break into the Billboard Top 20. For listeners in 1971, Timothy was unforgettable. Teens would sing along without always realizing what the lyrics implied, while others whispered about the song's meaning like it was some kind of forbidden secret. It became a piece of underground pop culture, the kind of track you'd hear blasting from a car radio and then debate about all afternoon with your friends. Though the Buoys never scored another hit, Timothy secured their place in rock history. It wasn't just a one-hit wonder. It was a flash of audacity, a reminder that even in an era filled with larger-than-life anthems, a simple folk rock tune could shock, amuse, and captivate all at once. And for those who lived through it, hearing Timothy today is like stumbling across a half-forgotten rumor from youth, strange, haunting, and impossible to ignore.
and if I can't find my way back home.
Soft rock had its own quiet power in the early 70s, and Climax's Precious and Few was proof that you didn't need volume to make a lasting impression. With tender vocals and gentle instrumentation, the song wrapped listeners in a warm embrace. Its slow, floating melody seemed to capture the very act of holding on to someone you love just a little tighter, a reminder of how fragile those moments can be. Recorded at Original Sound Studios in Hollywood, producer Larry Cox pushed the band toward a restrained, emotionally centered mix. The instrumentation is delicate, shimmering guitar strums, understated percussion, and lush harmonies. Lead singer Sonny Geraci, already known for his work with The Outsiders, brought a vulnerability that gave the lyrics their weight. The song gained momentum in late 1971, eventually reaching the top of the charts in early 1972, proving that sometimes simplicity is what resonates most. For listeners back then, Precious and Few wasn't just another radio single. It was a slow dance under the disco ball at high school gyms, or a song couples played quietly while driving home late at night. It held a mirror to the intimate, fleeting connections that defined youth in that era. For many boomers and Gen X fans, hearing it today feels like reopening an old love letter you thought was lost. Climax may never have followed it up with another major hit, but in some ways, they didn't need to. With this one song, they captured something universal and timeless, Precious and Few still stands as a reminder that the heart of rock wasn't always about loud guitars and wild solos. Sometimes it was about slowing down long enough to appreciate love, loss, and the fragile beauty of the moment. Some one-hit wonders feel like daydreams you almost forgot you had. Toast and Marmalade for Tea by Australian band Tin Tin was one of those hazy gems that drifted across the airwaves in 1971. Built on a wobbly electric piano riff and delivered with soft, almost whispered vocals, it sounded like nothing else on the radio. The song had a whimsical, sun-dappled quality, as if it were pulled from a half-remembered afternoon. Produced by Morris Gibb of the Bee Gees, the track was recorded with a simplicity that worked in its favor. A happy accident during the session created its signature sound. When an engineer accidentally knocked a mic stand, it added a subtle warble to the piano track. Rather than redo it, they kept it. And that off-kilter effect became the song's trademark. It was a reminder that sometimes imperfection makes a song more human, more real. For listeners in 1971, Toast and Marmalade for Tea became a backdrop to quiet moments. You could imagine college students spinning it on turntables in their dorms, windows cracked open to the summer breeze. It wasn't the kind of track that filled arenas, but it was perfect for those slower, reflective times when you let music carry you away. It tapped into a softer side of rock, gentle, quirky, and deeply evocative. Though Tin Tin would fade from the spotlight, this single left behind a feeling that still lingers decades later. It captured the spirit of a moment in time, when even the simplest melody could take you on a journey. Toast and Marmalade for Tea may not have the fire of a hard rock anthem, but it remains unforgettable in its own delicate way. A quiet treasure from 1971's overflowing tapestry of sound. In the early 70s, the airwaves were packed with experimentation, but sometimes all it took was a straightforward rocker to cut through the noise. Sweet Mary by Wadsworth Mansion was just that, a driving, guitar-led track with a punchy beat and a melody that felt tailor-made for blasting on car radios. It wasn't trying to reinvent the wheel. Instead, it leaned on crisp riffs, catchy hooks, and an infectious rhythm that got people moving. The band recorded the track in Providence, Rhode Island, and its polished production gave it a clarity that set it apart from some of the grittier garage recordings of the time. With its steady percussion, jangly guitars, and a vocal delivery that walked the line between soulful and urgent, it had the makings of a hit, and for a brief moment, it was. Sweet Mary climbed into the top 10 on the Billboard Hot 100, giving Wadsworth Mansion their one shining shot at national recognition. For those who remember it, this song was the soundtrack to everyday life in 1971. Teenagers tuned into their local AM stations hoping to catch it, while others wore the grooves thin on their 45 copies. You can almost picture summer afternoons with the song spilling out of backyard speakers, kids shooting hoops in the driveway, and neighbors humming along without even realizing it. Wadsworth Mansion never followed it up with another major success, but Sweet Mary stands as a reminder of how one hit could capture the spirit of a year. It was bright, catchy, and brimming with optimism, the kind of song that sticks in your head long after it leaves the radio. In the crowded landscape of 1971, this was a flash of joy that's worth rediscovering today. Folk rock had a way of capturing the counterculture spirit like no other genre, and Brewer and Shipley's One Toke Over the Line was a snapshot of that moment in 1971. With its twangy guitars, smooth harmonies, and sly, half-joking lyrics about being just a little too high, it balanced humor and honesty in a way that instantly connected with listeners. It was the sound of the early 70s youth, laid back, rebellious, and not afraid to poke fun at itself. Mike Brewer and Tom Shipley recorded the song with a tight band of Kansas City musicians, giving it a rootsy, down-home feel that set it apart from slicker Los Angeles productions. What started as a joke between the two during a rehearsal turned into their defining hit, climbing into the top 10 on the Billboard Hot 100. The song even sparked a mix of controversy and amusement, with conservative voices condemning it while others embraced its sly wink at the era's smoke-filled culture. For fans who remember 1971, this was a track that captured the mood of dorm rooms, coffee houses, and small-town record shops. You can almost picture a circle of friends passing around an acoustic guitar, laughing and singing along as the chorus rolled around. It was a folk rock anthem that didn't need to take itself too seriously. And maybe that's why it resonated so strongly. Brewer and Shipley never replicated the success of One Toke Over the Line, but they didn't need to. With this one playful yet poignant single, they carved their place into the cultural memory of the early 70s. The song lives on as both a time capsule and a testament to how music could mirror the humor, rebellion, and free-spirited experimentation of an entire generation.
And much to my surprise, I find that you were absolutely right. You've been right.
Few one-hit wonders captured the rebellious spirit of the early 70s like Signs by the five-man electrical band. With its jangly acoustic guitar intro, sing-along chorus, and sharp lyrics railing against conformity, the track became an anthem for those who felt stifled by authority and hungry for freedom. It was folk rock with a bite, pointed, witty, and undeniably catchy. The Ottawa-based band recorded it in Los Angeles, and what started as a B-side quickly flipped into their defining hit after radio DJs realized its power. The song's message, about exclusion, judgment, and the hypocrisy of rules, resonated deeply with young listeners navigating a world full of social change. By the time it hit the top 10, it had already become a soundtrack for protests, long road trips, and late-night dorm room debates. For fans who remember 1971, Signs was more than just a song on the radio. Picture cruising down the highway in a dusty Volkswagen van, windows rolled down, friends piled in, and everyone shouting along to the chorus. It was the perfect mix of defiance and joy, turning frustration into something communal and uplifting. Its lyrics might have been written for its time, but the feeling of pushing back against restrictions was universal. Though five-man electrical band never reached those same heights again, Signs has endured far beyond the band's short time in the spotlight. Covered, sampled, and sung by generations since, it remains one of the most recognizable one-hit wonders of the era. For those who lived through it, hearing it again is like stepping back into a moment when music wasn't just entertainment. It was a voice, a statement, and a shared rallying cry.
When I see that girl go walking by.
Some one-hit wonders don't explode with noise. They linger like a quiet memory. The Fortunes' Here Comes That Rainy Day Feeling Again was one of those tracks. With its lush harmonies, gentle guitar strums, and soft melancholy, it captured the sound of bittersweet reflection. It wasn't flashy or loud, but it struck a chord with anyone who had ever felt the slow ache of loss or the heaviness of a gray afternoon. The British band recorded the track at Abbey Road Studios, working with engineer Peter Vince, who added subtle string flourishes to elevate its dreamy atmosphere. The Fortunes had scored some hits in the mid-60s, but this became their last brush with U.S. success. The vocals drift with a sense of resignation, yet the melody carried enough bounce to keep the song from sinking into sadness. It was a careful balance, wistful, but still radio-friendly, giving it staying power during the summer of 1971. For listeners, this was the kind of song that played during moments of solitude. Imagine sitting by a window as the rain rolled down, or driving home from work under cloudy skies with the AM radio low. The harmonies wrapped around you like a blanket, letting you lean into the feeling rather than run from it. It was less about heartbreak and more about that universal sense of heaviness we all feel from time to time. The Fortunes never again climbed the American charts, but with this one track, They left behind something timeless. Here comes that rainy day feeling again. Still resonates with anyone who remembers the early 70s as a time of transition, when joy and melancholy often lived side by side. It was a fitting close to their career in the spotlight, and it still lingers like the echo of a rainy afternoon in 1971. And there you have it, 10 forgotten one-hit wonders from 1971 that remind us just how magical even fleeting moments in rock history can be. These songs may have only brushed the charts once, but they captured emotions, memories, and a spirit of the times that still echoes today. Which of these tracks takes you back the most? Share your stories in the comments below. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, be sure to like, subscribe, and join us for more journeys through rock's golden years. Until next time, keep the vinyl spinning.